All right, for time's sake, we'll jump right in. My name's Troy Daniels. I'm the technical trainer here at SimpliPhi Power. We have Lumin on as well. John Profit's going to be speaking on Lumin's part. So we're going to go through these slides talking about a little bit about SimpliPhi, a little bit about Lumin, and then some of the benefits of using the products together. A few housekeeping items. If you have questions, go up to that black control bar. I see a few people already have found it. Go ahead and type into the Q&A any questions you have throughout the presentation. You may either get them answered through the chat, or more than likely, we'll go over them at the end, time permitting, to go through these questions live. So again, if you have any questions, just type them right into that Q&A. You can do that throughout the entire presentation. All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. I'm going to jump right in. So I'm going to start with a little bit about SimpliPhi Power, very brief company overview, and a little bit about what we do. So this is a nice timeline of SimpliPhi Power. We actually were founded in 2010 as OES Energy, Ojai Energy Storage, I believe that was it. It was even a little bit before my time. And a lot of our batteries back then were called the Liberty Pack. This was just the founding of the company, really, where we started to move towards storage. And in 2011, 2012, started to pick up a lot more residential projects, military and emergency response projects. These kind of kicked off to later on building out our product line expansions, building more all-in-one ESS solutions, energy storage system solutions, and actually relaunched eventually in 2015, 2016 as SimpliPhi Power. The relaunch mostly just came out of the naming scheme. We're not Ojai anymore, so there was no reason other than just the naming itself. But we've since then been ramping up manufacturing, ramping up development in our current product lines, continue to innovate and try to lower the cost of our batteries, as well as provide more batteries to more distribution partners all over the world. Okay, a little bit about our batteries. Safe, proven, and simple technology. Safe as it's non-toxic, non-hazardous, cobalt-free chemistry. This means no risk of thermal runaway. So, thinking about lithium batteries, fires are oftentimes kind of associated with these batteries. That is not the case with lithium iron phosphate. UL certified 1642 on the cells, 1973 on the battery itself, and 9540A on a system level. UN DOT certified as well, 9480 and 38.3. Sorry, I said 94, I think 3480 and 38.3. Supply chain wise, we're always very conscious of how we are receiving goods, making sure there's no bad practices behind mining or anything like that. A lot of the other kind of cobalt-based batteries do tend to associate when it comes to supply chain with things like child labor and other not so environmentally conscious as well as human conscious aspects. Proven technology, over a decade of experience and growth, deployed in over 40 countries, over 100 megawatt hours installed worldwide. That number is always growing. Tested and validated by the U.S. Army and Marine Corps through various projects with the Department of Defense. We are also have special permission to fly, FAA permission, so we can actually ship our batteries over air, which is pretty rare when it comes to lithium batteries. And we actually manufacture here in the United States. This is not a white label. We are manufacturing our batteries. Simple, as it's integrated, integrates and optimizes any generation source as easily as possible. We really try to make it, while an advanced battery, very simple to use, simple to design with, simple to meet certain customer needs. So looking at why, what we're looking to accomplish, looking at the problem, you could call it, escalating energy costs, definitely. I won't bore you too much with these numbers, but just looking over it as, electricity rising 15% over the last 10 years. And we can only expect that to go up. TOU rates, things like that, time of use. All of these are shifting towards more reasons to own energy storage versus just having maybe a solar array on your roof. Failing infrastructure is a huge one. We're seeing more and more blackouts, whether they're planned or not. If you're in California, you definitely know what I'm talking about. A lot of grid loss. It's really good to have kind of your own mini grid, if you would, and really builds reliability and sustainability, as well as decarbonization. That's the last point I'll make. Just we're talking, environmental factors, cutting down that carbon footprint. These can all be factors as to why we're seeing a rise in energy storage. Okay, so if I could sum up the base of our products, again, it's a lithium iron phosphate battery. So that is our lithium chemistry type. And we actually manufacture with a cylindrical form factor. This combined with our manufacturing process and actually keeping everything in-house as far as manufacturing goes, allows us to ensure the batteries are of the highest quality and ensure we know exactly how our batteries operate. And beyond that, the battery is just the base product. There's products beyond that still use this base in it. So all of our products meet the same standard. I mentioned applications. We're going to be talking a lot about grid-tied applications here. So when we're looking at grid-tied use, these are some important things to consider that the batteries are definitely used for. Peak shaving, cutting out that demand. That peak, usually 15 minutes, looking at the time intervals at least, and cutting out that by using the energy storage instead of the grid. Time of use, this is going to become more and more common. I really am seeing this pop up all over the place, so I would not expect this to go anywhere. If anything, it's going to start showing up in more and more jurisdictions of actually being charged more during peak demand times. So that might be when you get home. Unfortunately, it tends to be that way. And a battery can really help significantly cut that cost down by using the storage instead of the grid during those time of use charge times. And really just looking at integrated solar plus storage, whether that's building resiliency when your grid goes down, saving money, storing your own power, tons of it, or using these kind of things like peak load shaving and time of use. So SimpliPhi Power Energy Storage Systems, accelerating the energy transition, really trying to cut out as much emissions as we can, make that switch to renewable energy, reimagining the power grid. So, with rising energy demands and power demands, we really need to start rethinking how the grid reacts and making sure that we can cut out blackouts and things like that. So that kind of ties right into building a more resilient energy future, as well as looking to how we can deliver economic value through these various functions, as well as just the ROI, the return on investment over time. Okay, just to go through a few products here before I hand it off to Lumin. These are just products that that kind of relate to what we're talking about today. So we do have a lot of other products, but just kind of for this presentation, I just want to talk about a couple. So our 3.8 kilowatt hour battery, this is our standard Phi battery. This is our most popular product. It is parallel connections. It is scalable, meaning there's really no limit to how many of these you can scale up, which we'll talk about why that's a benefit later, especially related to combining with a Lumin product. 48 volts, the majority of what we're going to be talking about today. It's the majority of what we're using at this point. These batteries come with an integrated battery management system and an integrated circuit breaker for protection. The access line is also going to be an important topic today. These are plug and play inverter charger batteries, all built into a NEMA 3R enclosure. It's outdoor rated. This could be for DC or AC coupled systems, newer existing PV. It's definitely a big seller when it comes to retrofit. So a grid tied array that's already on the roof. It doesn't, I guess, need to be on the roof necessarily. and you're putting this in line to add energy storage for a customer. Access solution really comes in two options right now, the Schneider access and the Solarc access. And very last, our newest battery to our battery line is the SimpliPhi battery. This is our same size, the 3.8. It's still the 3.8 kilowatt hour battery. It can handle a little bit more surge, which we'll talk about later as well. And it has roughly the same dimensions as our standard battery. The big difference is that it has closed loop communications with the inverter. So it actually communicates with those inverters, and actually has advanced integration right now with the Solarc inverter. So it can do things like auto-populate set points, provide high-level protection by telling the inverter what to do. You can have smaller battery banks to the inverter's capabilities or flexible sizing. High-level accuracy readings when it comes to SOC, voltage, charge, and discharge. And definitely kind of, this actually compare indoor access at this point. So this is our a little bit more advanced BMS, battery management system, closed loop communication battery. All right, with that, John, I'm gonna go ahead and hand you over the controls here.
Great. As you're doing that, Troy, can you hear me okay?
Yep, absolutely.
Terrific. So thank you, Troy, for a great introduction, as well as inviting us to this webinar. We're really excited to be here with you guys today. You got a great product and a great company, and we're just excited to partner up with you guys here. So I will spend the next few minutes introducing Lumin, talk a little bit about our product, what it's used for, how it works. I've also invited one of our joint customers, Stephen Krepkovich, who has a SimpliPhi battery as well as a Lumin smart panel in his home. He will speak for a couple of minutes just to introduce his system and talk about it a little bit. And I'll also show a quick software demonstration. I think it's probably the easiest way to understand how Lumin works is by just showing the software. And with that, I'll jump right into it. So Lumin got its start about 4 years ago. We are, hold on one second, let me make sure I can switch slides here. There we go. Got our start about 4 years ago, and we have a pretty simple mission. That is to make ordinary circuits smart and responsive. A couple of key words here, those being ordinary. So the Lumin smart panel can work with any existing load center and any circuit breaker. So we're not going to marry you to a Schneider breaker or an Eaton breaker. Instead, we can connect to really anything that's out there. And once connected, we inject that intelligence. That's the smart and responsive part. So we are not only an energy monitor, but we're also an energy control system. So each individual breaker that Lumin is connected to, we can get real-time data, and we can also control those breakers. From there, excuse me, there's a little bit of a delay. From there, it's a lot of software. So we really created Lumin with a few things in mind, much of which Troy talked about, those being, the evolving utility landscape, prices are going up, the rate structures are changing. And really this whole, utility is just becoming a different model. It's less centralized, it's more distributed. We see far more local generation, energy storage systems, EVs, personal microgrids, and we feel like Lumin is strongly positioned to help usher in this new distributed energy economy, being that critical junction between where electricity enters our home and where we use it and where it's distributed. Feel like we've got a great spot where we can help bring value, and that's where we're focused. So here are a few of the things that a smart panel can introduce to a home. We've got a few of these highlighted here. Maybe the one in the top left is energy storage. That's where we're going to focus most on today. So when you have a solar plus storage system, Lumin can really enhance that storage system. I'll spend a fair amount of time talking about that. But we're also working really closely in areas that have demand charges. These could be places like Arizona, Nevada. We saw it in a short bit of time in Kansas and Missouri. If you have a demand threshold, Lumin can help limit your overall demand to a certain point by prioritizing and automating circuits. We're also working in a lot of markets that are starting to see more dynamic electricity pricing, places with time of use rates like California, where in addition to being able to do, self-consumption with your energy storage system, we can also help curtail loads during those peak TOU periods. And the ones that are all in this sort of tan color here, these are ones that are on our roadmap. So Lumin is hardware and software. And on the software side, really, it's where we're focused. And it's one of these evolving products. So as the software develops and becomes more mature, we get to add value. So for each Lumin panel that's installed today, it's really just kind of a stepping stone for future applications as well. These can be things such as grid services, so entering third-party demand response programs with utilities, or integrating into future smart home programs. We're also excited about things that we can do with identifying early fault detection for appliances. That's the appliance health bar here, as well as power control systems. So new to NEC 2020 is the ability to use controls for limiting production for various use cases. And that's one thing that we see, and I'll touch on later with PV curtailment. So that is, just a kind of a handful of different applications that come included with a smart panel such as Lumin. So now to our specific product, we have of what we refer to as platform technology. So that's hardware and software. The hardware is really the base in which our software builds upon. And from there, we have data-driven algorithms that are powering our circuits. We have real-time control and monitoring. The Lumin Smart Panel is patented and UL compliant to 916 and 61010. So that defines us as an energy management system. And we comply with all the safety protocols for monitoring, controls, and energy management systems. We are an add-on to the existing distribution panel. So we often get the question of, are you a load center? Do you have a bus bar? And the answer to that is no. Instead, we retrofit onto any existing load center and any existing circuit breaker. So we fit really well in with the solar plus storage retrofit market, but also do a fair amount of new construction. So pick your electrical panel of choice and then just plug Lumin into that as well. Our product ships with two components that we like to make note on. So in addition to the Lumin panel itself, we do have our own grid voltage detection so that we can sense power outages and respond accordingly. And then we also have a single set of 200 amp CTs that can be used to measure whole house consumption or whole panel consumption, in addition to the circuit level monitoring and control that you'll get with Lumin. So the next thing I'll touch on is how it works. So how does the Lumin panel connect to a distribution panel? And when you see this diagram, I think it'll make a lot of sense. It's very simple. We are simply intercepting that circuit on its way to the appliance or system. So it's a two-step process. One, you're going to disconnect the load wire that you would see in figure 1 here. And 2, you're going to insert a Lumin conductor, and Lumin comes completely pre-wired. So you simply mount our box, bring our wires into the load center, and make a very basic electrical connection at the breaker, as well as one on that existing load wire. So now we've just intercepted that circuit on its way to the load. The installation itself generally takes about 2 to 4 hours on average, and we can control any circuit breaker up to 60 amps, so 60 as you can see here. The Lumin panel is also stackable. So if in the event that you needed to control more than 12 lines, then you could add a second or even third Lumin Smart Panel to get additional monitoring and control. And one important note here is that while this says 12 circuits, I prefer to look at it like 12 lines. So we can control up to 6 dual pole circuit breakers or 12 single pole circuit breakers or any combination of those two. Once connected, we can communicate to a home's network through Wi-Fi or through an Ethernet cable. So we have an exposed Ethernet port on the side of the Lumin panel. So if you decide you want to go directly to the router or a switch, you can certainly do so. We also have a built-in Wi-Fi card, which is capable of broadcasting its own Wi-Fi hotspot, which can then connect to the home's network. So here's what it looks like when it ships in the left. We are manufacturing locally in Virginia. Our headquarters is based in Charlottesville, Virginia, and we have 2 manufacturing facilities or manufacturing partners, one in Lynchburg and one in Charlottesville as well. And the slide or the photo on the right here is one of our proud installers in the California area. His name is Nathan. He had just installed his, I don't know, second or third Lumin panel, and he sent us a photo. He's pretty excited about it. But we are active in probably about 34 states now, and I think we're approaching 140 certified Lumin installers. and growing really every day, much because, we're seeing our partners like SimpliPhi growing, and we just tend to accompany them. I am going to actually shift gears here a little bit, and I've got this slide here that talks about our software and how it works, but again, I feel like it's best to just show it. So give me one moment here and see if I can get this to load. But what I'll do now is I'll give a quick software demonstration. So you should see our screen change here. This is the Lumin Insights portal. This is available on both web, which you're seeing here, as well as iPhone or Android apps. So from inside of the system here, from inside of our portal, this is what installers as well as homeowners can see when they log in. So each of these individual tiles here represents a circuit that Lumin has connected to. And then in the top, we get our basic energy flow chart. So we can see, how much our PV system is producing, whether we're importing or exporting. And then when we scroll down, we can get this individual circuit level data here. So if I were to just click on, say, the refrigerator, I can get real time how that particular circuit is drawing power. So it looks like it's using about 180 watts. And I could also get historic information about this. So I could cycle through now, I could cycle through over the last hour, the last day, or I could create a custom time frame. I could get lifespan worth of data from once it was connected and online for each individual circuit that it's connected to. What sets us apart, I think, from other monitoring platforms is not just the granular data, but it's also the controls. So for instance, if I were to go to this range here, and I noticed for any reason, it's only running at 2 watts, but if I had noticed for any reason here that it was running, and I would expect that to be probably closer to 2 kilowatts, and I had already left for work for the day or was on vacation and I didn't want to return home, I could simply go to this green toggle switch here and cycle that appliance off. So there are some nice safety features involved. And really what I'm demonstrating now is our most basic level of control. This is the binary on and off. It's just as simple to turn circuits back on. Now I'll also demonstrate our level 2 and 3 controls. Those would be schedules and modes. So schedules would be our level 2 control, and it's exactly what it sounds like. If we wanted to schedule various circuits to turn off and back on based on day of the week of the year, we can certainly do so. And that's as simple as giving a schedule a name, picking whatever circuits you want to automate based on this drop-down list of available circuits, a frequency, and a time period. This particular schedule here was set up for a customer who is interested in getting rid of some standby load or vampire load, parasite load, whatever you want to call it. It's got a lot of names. But basically, they noticed that these circuits, even when they weren't running, were still consuming a fair amount of energy. So rather than paying for those circuits to idle themselves overnight, they've simply set up a schedule. And it looks like they've also got a water heater in there, maybe just to get rid of an unnecessary cycle at night. Scheduling feature is often used for time of use rates as well. So if you notice, you've got a customer that's got incredibly high utility bills and are having trouble managing their consumption during those peak TOU periods, you could just as easily create a schedule around various circuits to remind yourself not to use them during those periods. And the last level of controls is going to be our modes. So this is probably the reason that we're gaining the most traction in the marketplace right now. This is why a lot of solar plus storage installers are adopting our product. And it allows for automated load shedding upon loss of grid. And so what makes that so useful is that now, rather than installing a protected loads panel and having that difficult conversation with your customer about which circuits to back up, a lot of installers are bypassing that protected loads panel or critical loads panel or backed up loads panel, and they're simply hooking their energy storage system up to main distribution panels, and thus giving that customer much more accessibility to circuits. But at the same time, they're managing that demand, they're managing that power demand and that energy consumption so as to not exceed what the energy storage system is rated for. So here we have our off-grid mode, and it's currently turned on. And we've listed a couple of circuits to protect here. So that means that the bathroom and the fridge, they'll stay on. But any other circuit that Lumin is connected to in this case will be shed in the event of an outage. So if I simulate a power outage here, the Lumin grid voltage detection module will sense that voltage is out on the grid side, and we will automatically and instantaneously begin shedding any of those circuits that you don't necessarily want to back up. So these are generally the largest circuits in a home, the dedicated circuits that are running in high energy consuming appliances and systems like water heaters, air conditioning units, and various other circuits that you just don't necessarily want to back up, but perhaps you want to have access to. So again, I'll circle back to the range here. And if you decided that, at the end of the day, even though you're operating off of your energy storage system, you still wanted to boil some water or do some stovetop cooking, you can simply go back to that level 1 control. And Lumin will warn you, if this is a large load, it may not be in your best interest to turn it on. However, ultimately, we give our customers that power to do so they could turn this range back on and carry on with their day. And otherwise, perhaps they would not have ever had that particular circuit available to them were it not for Lumin. Excuse me. So that is our software in a nutshell. I will circle back now to the PowerPoint presentation. And I will just touch on a few other slides to help explain the product and its value. And then I'll hand it back to, I'll also hand it over to Stephen and before we hand it back to Troy. So after reviewing the software, you might have a decent idea of what the product is used for. But to further explain it, there's really 3 key areas where we feel like we're providing a lot of value for energy storage systems and home microgrids. First being that all residential energy storage systems have a max power output limitation. That's generally driven by the inverter or this hybrid inverter that they're connected to. So what Lumin can then do is it can govern those larger loads so that we stay below that kilowatt limit. And so for the homeowners, what that does is it unlocks more circuits, allows for flexible, reconfigurable backup, as well as expandable systems. And then for the installers, the benefits are avoiding the protected loads panel, both the installation and the discussion. And by doing so, it also accelerates the sales cycle and then leads to future repeat business for that particular customer if they want to expand their battery system to perhaps longer duration with less rewiring involved. And with SimpliPhi, of course, that becomes very easy with their scalable and modular battery packs. The next one being kilowatt hours. So we're shifting away from power and moving into energy here. And the way, Kevin from my team likes to refer to it as, all battery systems only have so much gas in the tank or kilowatt hours. So responsive load control with Lumin allows you to stay within those energy limits, the energy capacity of your system. So one of the things we see is homeowners really want to make sure that they're not depleting their batteries too quickly. Another thing that we see is they want to right size their system. So they can, oftentimes use products like Lumin to measure their overall consumption for key circuits over time so that they have a better idea of how much energy they use. So when they're sizing their energy storage system, they know exactly, with the help of their installer generally, but they'll know exactly what size system they need to power those key appliances for the duration that they're looking to do so. And then on the installer side, again, it comes back to customer satisfaction for the homeowner, as well as reduced troubleshooting by being able to better understand what's happening inside of the home in terms of energy consumption. And then the last one here that I'll touch on quickly is what we refer to as PV curtailment. So this is common for AC coupled systems where it may be difficult to match the solar PV size with that of the energy storage system. So many energy storage systems have a finite amount of power that they can output, but also a finite amount of power that they can take in. So if you've got an existing PV system out there that might be oversized for the storage system that you want to propose, many Lumin installers will simply route those Lumin control wires to branch circuits or string inverter outputs. And they'll just ensure that in the event of an outage, the PV system's never producing more than what the energy storage system is rated to take in terms of power. So this is a nice complement to systems that have good frequency shifting, at least on the size of the PV system and limiting its total output. Now we've kind of touched on the value for homeowners, so I'm going to skip over this slide here and actually let you hear it from the source. I'm going to take a moment here to introduce Stephen Krepkovich. Again, he is a customer of both SimpliPhi and Lumin. This is a picture of his system located here in Charlottesville, Virginia. And Stephen, if you're connected, we'd love to hear a couple of words from you about your system.
Yeah, thanks, John. No problem. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay.
Yep, we can hear you. Thanks.
Okay, great. So yeah, like John said, uh, I live outside of Charlottesville, a little bit outside of Charlottesville. We built a new house 2 years ago in 2018. Turns out that we are at the end of our utility provider's line. And many of their lines are above ground and there's lots of trees. So, about 2 weeks after we moved into this nice new house, we had a power outage that was, I think, over a day, maybe a day and a half long. That for us really spurred going solar with battery backup. I also have a young family. I have a 4-year-old and a 7-month-old child now. So, being in Central Virginia, it gets pretty warm here in the summers. So I wanted to make sure that we could keep the house cool in the summers and warm in the winters. So one of the things I wanted with my system was the ability to control the HVAC. So that the SimpliPhi system is big enough to let me do that. But as you guys know, running the HVAC all day it's going to deplete even the largest battery, and that's where Lumin comes in for me. Like John said, and it really does give me that control to say during a grid outage, what do I want to have powered? I can run the HVAC if it's too hot or too cold outside, or I can turn it off and run basically everything else that's connected to my system. And John showed you on his demo the ability to turn circuits on and off, and guys, it really is that easy. The couple times I've done it, we had an outage that was probably a different outage going on probably 18 hours. In the morning, I turned on the water heater and a couple other things. When people were done taking showers, turned those off, saved the rest of the battery. The other time, and this is maybe a non-mainline use, but I was actually installing a fan upstairs, and one of those circuits happened to be connected to Lumin. I had forgotten to go downstairs and turn it off, turn the circuit off from my app, from the phone, did the installation, turn it back on, and everything was perfect. So it's really simple to turn the circuits on and off when you need to manually. I haven't gotten a ton into the scheduling and modes, but the software is definitely there.
Stephen, that's excellent. I think you've given us a new sales use case as well for the do-it-yourself electricians out there. Thank you again for talking about your system. I think it was very enlightening.
Yeah, no problem.
So the last couple of slides here, let me make sure I've got control still, are going to just be, again, kind of talking about how we pair with energy storage systems. So we do offer sales trainings for installers out there, but one of the things that we find is really helpful is just sort of packaging Lumin as part of a system or a system offering. So traditionally, we've got the smaller to medium-sized energy storage systems out there. I'm looking at the far left-hand column, and the traditional way is to just choose a handful of backup circuits, and those are the only ones that will be energized in the event of an outage. We believe at Lumin that with that same size system, you can do so much more. We can really enable whole home backup, but without the risk of all of those large circuits running at the same time. And we can extend that battery life like Stephen talked about. So if you really do need to use the water heater or run the HVAC system, we're not worried about it running out of control and continuing to operate when we don't need it. And then for large systems, they may already be whole house backup, but the case study that we sometimes like to bring about is if you've got your entire home hooked up to a battery, it really doesn't matter how big your battery is, it still runs the risk of premature depletion. So if you've got, an EV charger, for instance, and the outage occurs at night, and all of a sudden you've just transferred all of your battery power from one battery to another, you get up in the morning, that battery power doesn't do you much good when it's stuck in an EV and not in your residential energy storage system. So we do see a lot of value from both small and big systems. But that sweet spot for us, at least, has been that small to medium sized system where we can really unlock so much more of the battery systems or the energy storage systems potential. And again, this slide really talks kind of about the same thing. It's really just comparing that traditional backed up loads panel where you've got a few circuits that you're going to pull out, generally ones like the lights, the fridge, miscellaneous outlets. and unlocking a new way of doing things with that same system, where you now have access to all of your circuits, just not simultaneously running at once. So you can really direct power to where you need it during that outage. We've already talked about some of the values for installers. Other ones that I'll make note of are it helps simplify the installation process. Excuse the pun. We also have things like thought leadership and differentiation. It's something that you can add to your sales repertoire to help you stand out in what's becoming a pretty crowded market with commoditized energy storage systems. And then higher closing rates when you don't have to have that difficult conversation about which circuits to back up and what's essential and what's not. And then also in many cases with PV curtailment, allowing for a larger PV system size, which can then again increase your margins. And then 2 more slides here. And this one is courtesy again of our founder, Kevin O'Shea here, who you may hear from during Q&A. But he feels like everything is more easy to digest when you have an analogy. So choose your analogy here. Responsive load management is like plane without a co-pilot. Busy intersection without traffic lights probably makes the most sense to me, but it's basically saying that you need something to navigate where that power or where that energy is going to. Otherwise, you run the risk of system failure. And last slide here, and this is just our certified installer program. So if anybody on the line today is interested in taking the next steps with Lumin, these are the steps that we ask you go through. It's pretty simple. We do product demonstrations pretty much daily. Someone from the team can walk you through how the system works, much like we've done today, show you a little bit more into the software, the app. We also can get you set up with our partner portal. This is where you get access to most of our technical documentation, manuals, spec sheets, single line diagrams, things of that nature. And then we ask, after you've procured some initial units, to do a very basic installation training. All of this these days is done virtually. So we'll get on a live install training. We'll walk you through everything from qualifying a job site to mounting and wiring and post-installation commissioning. And then optionally, we have some great sales trainings as well as co-marketing materials that our marketing team can get involved in. Val Newcomb, she's also on this webinar today. If anybody wants to get in touch with her about ways that they can help position Lumin as a product offering, she is always available and happy to take those inquiries. And with that, I will hand it back to Troy.
Awesome. Thank you very much, John. All right, let me just grab the controls back here. Let's take a look. All right, great stuff. I'm just going to wrap up everyone with a few slides, and then we can go into Q&A. Looks like I do see quite a bit of questions in there, so anything that's not answered, we'll do our best to get through. So I just kind of want to bring it all full circle here. Advantages of the SimpliPhi with the Lumin, and why that makes sense, and maybe really what puts our lithium batteries apart from other lithium batteries or other batteries you might use with the smart panel. So I think one of the biggest advantages, and I think John already actually mentioned it, is the scalability of the batteries. So the SimpliPhi battery, especially these, the standard Phi battery, has no limit as far as scalability, and that's both on the energy side and the power side. So if we're looking at something like backing up an entire home, or having the ability to actually switch loads on and off, you have this ability with our batteries to not be limited to truly back up an entire home. I've seen it done a lot. It definitely, there's a cost associated with backing up an entire house that might be a lot higher than looking at critical loads, but it is accomplished. You can definitely accomplish it. And when you have that ability to use the Lumin with our batteries, you still have that ability, though, to decide which loads are going to be covered during that outage. So even if you have enough storage to cover the entire house, you can still make conscious decisions. The batteries are actually designed to be small building blocks. All of our products are designed as small building blocks. These are smaller blocks that you can scale up in, and why that matters is we try to fit into each energy and power demand as close as we possibly can without what I call energy waste. So you look at like a 14 kilowatt hour battery, that comes only in that standard block of 14 kilowatt hours. When you add 2, maybe you only needed 1 and a quarter to fit your needs, but now you have energy waste. You've got, you end up paying for more than you need. We're trying to cut that out by having these small building blocks. Our batteries are also designed to be expandable. So as your power and energy demands increase, you can actually add our batteries now. You can add new batteries to an older existing system. And then you can decide still, again, tied in with the Lumin, decide, you know, maybe we still should cut out certain loads, or maybe, hey, we have more energy now than we expected to have. Now we can add loads on. And last, kind of on the scalability side, our batteries have a high discharge rate at 10 minutes. And this is really a surge, if you might look at it. So we can definitely oftentimes make the decision to cover things like pumps and air conditionings. But also with the Lumin, now we have the decision to, hey, you know, I'm on day 3 of this blackout. I don't have a lot of sun. Maybe I should not cover that heavier load today. So while the batteries have the ability, with the smart control, we have so much flexibility to decide how to interact. The life and the warranty of the battery is a big plus too. Our batteries are really designed for the maximum lifespan compared to a number of other lithium batteries. We have a standard 10-year warranty. That being said, the lifespan can greatly exceed that warranty, especially when you're using 80% depth of discharge. Using the load controls through Lumin, you can be conscious of your depth of discharge a lot more and really decide, you know, when it's very necessary to use more of the battery's capacity, versus when maybe, you know, maybe we can cut back a few loads so that we don't hit below 80% depth of discharge during this outage, or even just during the day or at night. So that definitely, you know, using the smart control to really decide exactly how your depth of discharge works is a huge advantage of combining the two products. We can also limit the discharge rate. You know, if you're seeing that your battery is discharging really high, like C/2, it's at that farthest limit the batteries can handle, you know, using that Lumin, we can cut back on loads, and that'll only ensure the battery lasts even longer. So you really have this ability to say, you know, hey, I really need this today. I need to be able to use these loads. I know it's pushing the battery to its limits, but in this certain outage, we really need this. Versus, you know, we really don't need this in this case, or, you know, maybe it's not an outage, maybe it's just during the, you know, during normal operation. So you can really help ensure the lifespan of the battery through these smart controllers. And very last, we'll talk a little bit installation. Ease of installation, definitely. I think, you know, John nailed it on the head there talking about already, so I won't bore you too much, but the ability to actually cut out extra equipment. And again, looking at that panel and how we can utilize that panel and cut out other equipment or other panels that we might need to add just for critical loads. Using our access solution, which Stephen talked about, that's actually the customer that we heard from. We're looking at this picture here. You know, that makes these installations even easier. It's already an ESS solution. It's already an all-in-one. Everything's put in on our side. So adding the Lumin, now we really only have 2 components we were adding into this: the Lumin stuff and the SimpliPhi. So, you know, the entire box, that really can cut down quite a bit on installation time, cost, and really makes ease of installation. So nothing messes up or anything like that. And the last thing I'll mention is really looking at Lumin as a tool as well for advanced load monitoring. And again, the advantages of the battery discharge rate and being able to really pick. I mean, this is what we've been talking about this entire time, but I really do see it as an even more integral part to advanced monitoring when it comes to seeing it on a battery level as well, and what your battery can handle, is handling at the time, and really seeing it on a load basis versus an overall number of kilowatts. Okay, very last, I'm actually going to pop out as well. Maybe if it lets me. There it goes. Awesome. We also have an installer qualification program. This is not a requirement to install our batteries. Actually, one of the requirements is that you have accomplished 2 SimpliPhi installs. If you're just getting started with our batteries, reach out to our pre-sales line or our tech support line. We're happy to help with projects. I would encourage it more than anything so that everything goes really smooth on these first installs. However, we do have this program for people that are installing our batteries, our Elite IQ installer program. This program really highlights the installers we know can install our batteries, do install our batteries. We can provide swag packs to them. We highlight them as installers. The biggest benefit is they end up actually on our where to buy page. So if a customer is looking at where they want their batteries installed, maybe they're, right here in California, they'll see your company very first as somebody that we know can install our batteries. We don't necessarily make suggestions to customers, but we direct them to this page and they'll find you. Okay, let me just go back here. So this program requirements are attend a webinar. There's actually 3 different webinars you need to attend. They're actually listed here. Our standard battery 101, and then these 2 are either attend or watch on our YouTube channel. Our more advanced webinars regarding the battery state of charge and characteristics, as well as AC and DC coupling. You also need to complete a very short exam. Send us your 2 installs you've already accomplished, and send us your credentials to be an installer, just electrically, code-wise, jurisdiction-wise. And we'll get you all set up. So if you're interested in the program, you fit these requirements, go ahead and just fill out this application. It takes about 10, 15 minutes. It's all online. Send it, submit it, and we'll get right back to you. If you complete everything, there's no reason why you won't be accepted in the program and end up on that where to buy page. All right. Okay, so before I forget, I just want to give a huge thanks to John, to Kevin, Val, the whole Lumin team. Really appreciate everybody hopping on. I also want to give an absolutely huge thanks to Steven for talking about his system. It's always really nice to hear from real customers talking about what they're doing. So really appreciate everyone that joined as well. All of our contact information, mine is right here, and all the Lumin teams are right here. If you've got any questions, obviously you can see who's who here. I'm going to leave it on this page. I'm actually going to go ahead and pull up the Q&A. Looks like the Lumin team did some thinning out and answered some questions, which I really do appreciate. Let's just see what we have left, and we'll jump right through. So John, this first question I'm going to read appears to be for you. My Lumin questions are about battery and energy management. Does a Lumin have the capability to track date and time to estimate expected daily solar output and expected loads like electrical heating and cooling, and coordinate with those data points with battery SOC and gen set startup and hours of operation? Sorry, that's a bit of a mouthful.
No, that's okay. I think I understand the gist of the question, and it's a great one. The answer to it is today, not as much as we would like, but in the future, we're really building in a lot of what you're talking about right now. So we would refer to these as predictive algorithms that can anticipate how loads will operate by looking at both historical data as well as external variables like weather and such, so that we can better predict how circuits will behave. So we've got, data analytics engineers, we've got software engineers who are working daily to help build in some of these advancements into our system. Today, it's a little bit more manual in that you look at this data, you can interpret it, and then you can respond accordingly. So there's a bit more of a human element involved. However, a lot of what you're talking about is on the roadmap.
Awesome. I think this question is probably for me. Can it shave the peak fast enough to avoid peak charges? I'm guessing that's about the battery. As long as your battery sized correctly, yes, absolutely. And you probably, John, I apologize if you already, I know you probably answered a few of these, but never hurts to reiterate. How does Lumin control individual circuits? Do you use smart plugs / switches?
Yeah, so that's internal to the Lumin panel. So each circuit that we wire into actually passes through our hardware, where we have proprietary circuit boards and relays that allow us to control those circuits.
Okay. I think if this isn't for you, I don't understand the question. Is it working with GSM, SIM?
I think that has to do with communication. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But if it's in regards to Lumin, we do everything through a homeowners network, so Wi-Fi and Ethernet.
Got it. How do you disconnect from the grid during an outage? This one appears to be for me, I think. Do you supply a contactor control breaker that gets installed on the line side of the service panel? That's a great question. Actually, that could be a bit for both of us. It depends on the way you have things set up. I would definitely say if you're going to go with your main service panel, you're going to need an external disconnect. The benefit of that is huge still compared to moving circuits over and getting a critical loads panel. If you do have a critical loads panel and you're using something like our access solution, the automatic ATS is already built into that unit. So it would just automatically disconnect when the grid was not present. John, do you want to add anything into that?
Sure. Yeah. All I'll mention is if this is the first time doing whole house backup with either of our systems, we are happy to get on the line with you and review any single line diagrams or share some of our material with you, just so that you understand how to configure the system.
Awesome. Okay. Can software function to control the max load, such as if an oven is on, the water heater is not allowed to turn on?
Yeah, another great question. It's like you guys are looking at our product roadmap right now. So we have a feature and another mode that's going to be released shortly called demand management mode, where you're going to be able to prioritize circuits and set certain demand thresholds. And those will allow you to do exactly what you just mentioned. So set priorities around the AC, the water heater, maybe another circuit, so that if one is running, the other does not. So again, to answer your question today, not quite, but shortly, yes.
Awesome. Another question for Lumin. Can Lumin install and work with an RV? I'm guessing mobile application in general is this question.
Interesting. So I don't know the inner workings of RV electrical systems, but we are configured to work with any 120, 240 volt single or split phase system. So if that's what you have in the RV, then yes. If it's DC, then no. If it's any sort of 3-phase for commercial, that's also on our product roadmap.
Yeah, and I think just to add, doing some RV stuff myself, our batteries are really well taken in for mobile applications. They don't mind. All of our batteries are mobile technically, and yeah, most are AC 120. Some 120, 240. So I see no problem with using it. I think it can be really helpful actually, because space is tight oftentimes in those situations for energy storage. Will this work off grid only? I think that question is for you.
So I would say most of our applications are battery backup, so grid tied with battery backup, but we can work in both grid tied battery backup, and off grid.
Awesome. I think this one.
Troy, it's Kevin. There was a question which I think would be important to answer about oversized PV systems that was asked, and how Lumin can help with that. And that does require, we can't type the answer to that question. It's easier for John if you can speak to that for a minute. Sorry to interrupt, but I think that's relevant probably for most everybody.
Sure. So on Lumin's side, I think I touched on this briefly, but to maybe expand on it, if you have a certain kilowatt limitation on the energy storage system in regards to being paired with PV, and that PV system goes beyond that requirement or that threshold, Lumin can wire directly to circuit breakers that are connected to PV branch circuits. So if it were a microinverter system, this would literally be the branch circuits in a combiner box. If it was string inverters, then again, it could be the outputs of string inverters in a combiner box. And we would simply just monitor your PV production. And in the event that it's exceeding what the energy storage system is rated for in terms of intake, then we can start to shed branch circuits, and we can do that dynamically. So that can allow for oversized PV systems in relation to the energy storage system.
Yeah, and I just want to add a little bit into that too. SimpliPhi does have a limit, so this is a great idea. SimpliPhi does have a limit when it comes to AC coupling. This can help you not have to worry about that limit because, frankly, frequency shifting, which is the mechanism typically used in AC coupling, for the most part, while it's definitely been around for a while, it feels like it hasn't been around that long as we're really kind of refining how it works. So while we typically trust the inverter to limit the PV, this is a great way to make sure that it absolutely does and that you can have that oversized PV array. So I see a huge benefit when it comes to our batteries and that function. Okay, I think this one's probably for you. I haven't read it all the way through, but I'm guessing it is. If the distribution panel contain many loads per circuit breaker, is there a way to control a specific load at the power outlet via Wi-Fi or any other method?
Yeah, so that would require that we have certain integrations with things like smart plugs and smart circuits and lighting systems, which we are somewhat working on, but don't have widely available. So likely the answer is no. We are strictly at the circuit level for the most part. But again, I would say it's something that's on our roadmap, maybe not front and center. We're more worried about those largest circuits that are going to make up the 70 to 80% of your energy consumption, and less so those branch circuits and the individual outlets connected to them.
Awesome. And then can you integrate a generator and manage the charging?
Yeah, to an extent. So we can certainly work with generator systems. We're really, agnostic when it comes to fuel source, if you will. That being said, generators are often a bit bigger. They have, they have a lot of different characteristics, obviously. But we can certainly work with them the same way that we would work with an energy storage system.
Yeah, and I just want to add, if you got something like our ESS, like our access, that has the ability to manage the generator. So by managing your loads, oftentimes you probably are managing the generator already through both the Lumin and the SimpliPhi access. I think you already answered this, but is Lumin able to perform curtailment with any inverter manufacturer? Actually, that's a good question.
So the answer is yes, at the circuit level. So we're more granular with microinverter systems because they're just broken into more branch circuits. String inverters, we cannot control the DC side, so we're not going to work at the MPPT level, but we can control, a single output from an inverter and are agnostic to the inverter type.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And then Kevin's going to answer this next one. The question is it outdoor rated?
Yeah, that's a great question. And right now, the short answer is no, but that is squarely on the whiteboard. We had an outdoor version. It's a long story, but there was some COVID-related challenges with one of our suppliers. So the outdoor version will be back in the street, I would say, end of the first quarter, March, April 2021. So when we do have installers that are working around that limitation, John can provide more color and details on that, but it's generally doable to get Lumin on an inside wall, even for an outdoor main distribution panel.
Yeah. The only thing I'll add is that any Lumin line, any Lumin conductor can be extended. So if you do need to run our conductors, you can run it to a junction box. You can extend that in your own conduit as far as you need to, and it will still function properly.
Yep. And most of our batteries are indoor rated, but our access is outdoor rated. Typically, though, the access tends to sit up against a wall, so you're probably not far from running inside to connect on the batteries ESS side. Will this work for off-grid? I think so. This is phrased a little bit different, but I think than the previous question. But basically, the question is, will it work for an off-grid system? There is no grid present.
Yeah, on Lumin's side, the answer is definitely. And I think there's a lot of unique use cases for off-grid. I mean, you no longer have you may have redundant power sources, but you don't have a primary power source of the grid. So you're even more limited in terms of your both your power and your energy. So we have a number of off-grid customers who just want that second set of eyes, really, on their energy consumption so that they can better manage it.
And then another Lumin question before I jump into few more here. How can Lumin be connected to a commercial 3-phase solar system with looks like 277, 480 volt, 3-phase, 60 hertz?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of description there, but I think
so unfortunately the answer is today our monitoring aspect, or the monitoring portion of our system, will not be perfectly accurate. The controls will work the same way. You just, for a 3-pole circuit, you're just going to use 3 lines opposed to 2 for a 240 and 1 for a 120. We don't really care what the voltage is. The only issue being, if you do have 3 legs or a true 3-phase service, our voltage monitors are only set up for 2 lines. So if we can't measure that 3rd line, our data could become inaccurate.
Awesome.
Though one more note that we do have in 2021, we're planning to release a 3-phase version of our product.
Perfect. All right, Jesus, I see a question from you. This is Jesus from Reborn. By the way, Jesus, I missed you in Puerto Rico this year. That was always a trip I look forward to. Jesus is one of our distributors for Reborn Energy. He's got a question. Wondering if Lumin has control, this is actually a good question, over the inverter charger, which by default could have control over the SimpliPhi battery, or if Lumin will control only the circuit breaker panel level, which of course will impact energy storage. So I guess the question is it controlling anything related to the inverter and the charger itself, or is it really just the panel right now? And I guess...
I'd say it's really just the panel right now. I think that there's room for additional communications between our systems that our software teams are working on. But maybe to keep it simple with this answer, I'll say we're pretty much just the panel right now.
Yep. And I think they'll agree that is definitely a roadmap with our new SimpliPhi. I think we will be looking forward to something in the future, I'm sure, of a little bit more communication on the battery level. Which is more on us than anybody else. Question for you, John. How do you disconnect from the grid? Okay, I think you already answered this one, so let's just make sure though. How do you disconnect from the grid during an outage? Do you supply a contactor or controllable breaker that gets installed on the line side? So you did answer that one, but just to confirm, no contactor or ATS is provided, correct?
Correct. So it's either through the ATS in the SimpliPhi access system, or it's a third-party ATS MID type solution that can island the home. Got it.
It looks like I see somebody fixed the. So I see somebody's referring to. Remember we talked about that question? I said I didn't know who it was for. There's some acronyms there. I think there was a misprint or a typo. I think they were asking about GFIs. And arc fault circuit interrupters as well, and if that works with it.
Yeah, this is one of our differentiators in the market. So there are some other players out there who have smart panels. One of the issues that we often see from them is that they're not compatible with AFCI and GFCI breakers, whereas Lumin has no issue with that.
Awesome. This is a great question too. Can the Lumin relay contactors be serviced or replaced in the field?
They can, yeah. So fortunately, we've got a pretty robust system with a low failure rate. That being said, if there is an issue that arises, it is component based, and we can simply send out new circuit boards with relays already installed. We can send out new relays. Whatever needs to be fixed can be fixed, and we have a 10-year warranty on our product. So if we do need to do any sort of service work and it's under warranty, we make that process pretty simple for our installers out there.
Awesome. It looks like we got about 2 more questions there, which is great because we're a little over time. We'll wrap it right up. Well, not 3 more questions. Does Lumin have a plan to integrate with home security system? I'm not sure what the integration would be there, but
I don't know. Kevin, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'd say it's an easy one, and no, and it's not really on the radar, but it's got me thinking. So I appreciate the question, but Yeah, there's nothing currently in the works for home security systems, but it's interesting to think about. So thanks.
Just don't do Simply Safe because we already get confused on the phone line with that company.
Right?
All right. I think this question makes sense there. Do Lumin systems require backfed breaker connections between the PV and the service panel, or can something like a line side tap be used?
Yeah, if you want to control that circuit, we do need a breaker to connect to. So we want to have overcurrent protection upstream of our device because we don't have that built in. So we wouldn't want to connect directly to a tap.
Awesome. Could you kindly share the wiring layout for a grid tie with battery backup with Lumin? And then they gave their email. I'll just let somebody, maybe Kevin or Val, just snag that off there and let them shoot you over an email with that, or send you in the right direction, I guess.
Yeah, we can do that.
I'll leave that in there. This one's interesting. Kevin, I'm not sure if you see the question below that, if you want to answer that one or not.
I love that one. Yeah, give a call. This is Kevin O'Shea. Hopefully you see my contact info there. Give me a call or an email, and we can let you know what's going on as far as the funding of the company and current investment opportunities we have. So thank you.
Awesome. This question is how I have installed a 24-volt battery bank. Can I add it now? I see no reason not to, right, John?
Yeah,
So
no, we have a fully retrofittable solution.
Awesome. Can Lumin detect overheating and wiring and shut off in time?
I would likely point that to the direction of the overcurrent protection device. So that's really a primary role for the circuit breaker. As current increases beyond what that wire is rated for, it will be the catch mechanism to shut that circuit down.
Awesome. Agreed. Okay, cool. And then I see another question about a backup. That was like our last question. So just a little question about wiring diagrams. I just want to mention everybody, if you do have questions afterwards, we'll send out the link to the actual training. This has been recorded. We will work with Lumin to make sure that all their contact info is also on our follow-up email. So if you have any questions that weren't answered, or you just want to get in touch with either company, talk through some projects, or both companies at the same time, we'd love to collaborate. So just shoot us an email. And again, we'll send out something here probably either tomorrow or starting next week with some follow-up as well as the recording. So I just want to say again, huge big thanks to the Lumin team, as well as Kevin, and really just appreciate everyone for hopping on and joining. And John, really appreciate all of your presentation and slides there.
We're thankful to be part of it. Thank you, Troy. And thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks, Troy. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.